How can we tell that we're on the path to success or sliding down a slippery slope towards disaster in our software projects? Here are 9 warning signs that signal that you might be headed off track, plus a few ideas of how to fix them. Hi, I'm Dave Farley of Continuous Delivery and welcome to my channel. If you haven't been here before, please do hit subscribe, and if you enjoy the content today, hit like as well. Software development is an incredibly difficult thing to do well, because software is less constrained than most things that human beings do. We can build almost anything, which makes it hard to decide what to build in the first place. Programming itself can be easy. The challenge is making sure that we deliver something that effectively, safely and reliably does what people want. So how do we know if we're on the right track? Let's dive into 9 warning signs, plus a bonus 10th sign that could mean that there's trouble ahead. But before we begin, let me say thank you to our sponsors. We're extremely fortunate to be sponsored by Equal Experts, Transfic, Tuple, Honeycomb and Rad Studio. Honeycomb helps engineering teams deeply understand their production systems through observability. Each of these companies though offer products and services that align very well with the topics that we discuss here on the channel every week. So please do check out their links in the description below. Warning sign number 1. Success depends on the execution of a perfect plan. Planning is good, but all plans are wrong. We must leave room in any sensible plan to correct the inevitable mistakes when we find them. When we make our plans, we know the least about our project that we will ever know going forwards. That's just reality rearing its ugly head. There's no escaping it really. Even if our plan is perfect, external factors will change and make it no longer perfect. Think of it like working within the cone of uncertainty. Short-term plans can be fairly precise because there's a little range for variation, but the further out we travel in that cone, the further out along the timeline, the less certain we can be. Red flags here are if we're forced to treat both deadlines and scope as fixed, or if our plan includes some detailed work breakdown far into the future. Both of these are significant signs of trouble. The fix is to keep long-term plans at the level of outcomes, features or user stories, and review progress and revise the plan frequently as we learn more as we go. Our goal is to make short-term work breakdowns only inside a development team. Don't include them as part of the bigger picture plan. This way you can more easily adjust things as you learn more. You're less coupled to the detail of some future imagined way of doing things. So our best strategy is to always organise our plans so that any detail is only focused on the very short term, and anything further out in the future is left increasingly vague the further out we go. One useful technique to help with all of this is to separate planning into 2 distinct parts: planning for outcomes and planning the work. If our plans cover both in detail, that should be a big warning sign because they will certainly be wrong. If you are slavishly following them anyway, this is more than a warning sign, you're almost certainly already off track. If we find ourselves being driven by plans like these, we're very likely to fail. Such plans lead to lots of very poor behaviours that will only cost us more time, effort and money in the long run. Symptoms of this kind of failure are something called watermelon status reporting, that it's green on the outside but red in the middle. So we report the green bits to management. Are you on track? Yeah, sure. But in reality, we're busy cutting corners to meet artificial deadlines set by the plan. So wasting time and effort on dealing with the crap that we created last time because we cut all of those corners. You can't fix time and scope. So any plan that attempts to do this is definitely wrong. Now, everybody says that they know that this is true, but at the same time, nearly everybody does it anyway. Trying to fix time and scope in a plan is superstition more than it is planning. Certainly be definite about fixing times, like impossible to move deadlines, but then leave the development team free to trim scope to meet the deadline. Alternatively, fix the scope, but then allow the team to define release dates when the target scope is achieved. As a rule of thumb, make any plan for work that's further ahead than a single iteration or sprint only at the level of the outcomes, rather than attempting to specify the work necessary to achieve those outcomes. Allow the people doing the work to figure out what to do to achieve the goals. Treat the work breakdown as part of the implementation, not part of the planning. The next warning sign: throwing too many people at the problem. As Fred Brooks famously said in the 1970s, 9 women can't make a baby in 1 month. More developers just slow the project down and add complexity and almost never help you to go faster. Scaling means decentralizing decision making, dividing work into smaller, more autonomous teams, not throwing people at the problem. The data says that smaller autonomous teams are dramatically more productive than larger teams. Throwing people at a problem typically happens when people begin to panic about missed deadlines or unrealistic project scope expectations. The main red flag here is that management suddenly hires a bunch of developers in a rush to meet some impossible plan. The fix for this is to decide which matters most, time or scope, and optimize for the one that matters the most. If fixed scope is essential, I'd recommend questioning that to begin with, because it's rarely the truth. Remember, the scope that we think that we need at the start of a project will almost certainly be wrong. We will miss things, we will learn new things as we go, and the world will change, all of these things, while we're working on the project. In fact, if you don't change your mind on scope as the project progresses, I think that you're almost certainly doing it wrong. And so, of course, are heading for a different kind of failure now. If we don't change our schedule and or our scope when new things happen, then we're pretty much doomed to fail. Whether you see time or scope as your primary problem, either way, work iteratively, practicing continuous delivery so that your system is always production ready, and prioritize the work that's most important to your users, and then release as early as you sensibly can. Now, even if the list of features that you imagined at the start is not yet complete, you've already got the most important stuff out and available to your users. The third big warning sign is focus on process over outcomes. Our aim is to deliver good working software to our users and to maintain our ongoing ability to do so. This means that nothing else really matters. How many stories we deliver in a sprint is irrelevant if the stories that we deliver are of no value to users. How good our test coverage is irrelevant if we still have lots of bugs that stop users making use of our software. The fact that every function has neat comments doesn't matter at all if our code is still difficult to change. So the red flag here are things like teams judged by how many story points they deliver, but no one checks that those features actually benefit the users. Or hitting code coverage targets for testing being seen as more important than an increasing change failure rate. The fix for these things is to measure real outcomes. How long does it take to deliver changes to production? Are users happier when you do? Are the bugs minimal and quickly fixed? The steps in a process may or may not be useful, but the way that we determine this is by understanding how they affect the outcomes that really matter. How fast can we deliver change into production? What's the quality of that change? How well do our changes land with our users? These things are more difficult to measure, sure, than counting velocity or test coverage or other process-centric metrics, but they are much more important. So if your project is being measured by how well you are adhering to some process, but you can't answer these other questions, these other more valuable questions, then that is a warning sign that you're heading off track. You're not likely to be doing the right things if you can't measure that you're doing the right things. To solve this problem, stop measuring things that are easy to measure. but that don't really matter, and start measuring things that really do matter, even if they are more difficult to measure. Then make decisions based on the outcomes of these measurements. Number 4, it's slow to make simple changes. I once was working with a developer refactoring some code to make it more testable. As we worked, I pointed out that our refactoring had uncovered some usefully reusable behaviour. So I suggested that we create a new class to support our refactoring and make the code more easily testable and potentially more reusable. All of these, I think we'd agree, are normally good things. His head though dropped and his shoulders sagged. I asked him why the idea disappointed him so much. He said that the process for adding a new class involved changing the configuration in 3 places, reworking some documentation and filling in a form to request permission to add a new class to the build. This is less of a warning sign and more like a fire alarm. If something as small as creating a new class requires tons of paperwork or multiple permissions, then that certainly categorises as a fire alarm to my mind. High-performing teams have the freedom to make decisions quickly and easily without asking for permission from anyone else. So the red flag here is excessive bureaucracy or lack of trust in development teams to make their own decisions. The fix is to give developers the autonomy to make design and implementation decisions without waiting for approval at every step. The DORA research found that the ability of a development team to make decisions like these on design and implementation without asking permission from anyone else is a very strong predictor of high performance, and so a strong predictor of success. Warning sign number 5, the morale of development teams. Studies like DORA's also show that if development teams think that their system is bad, they're usually right. Teams producing great software tend to know that they're doing well. So if team morale is low, that should be a big warning sign that something fundamental is off. Red flag is developers feeling demoralised, untrusted or micromanaged, and that they would not recommend their employers to their friends. The fix here is to boost autonomy, mastery and purpose. Let teams make key decisions, encourage learning and ensure that everyone knows why the work that they're doing really matters. 6 in my list, reliance on heroes. If everything relies on rockstar developers to rescue a failing project, then that's a very serious warning sign. Red flag is one person who is the only one who can fix or understand certain areas of the code or certain practices. The fix to this is to spread that knowledge. You can do this with techniques like practicing pair or mob programming. Spread the knowledge so that no one person is a bottleneck. Warning sign number 7, low scores on the DORA metrics. The DORA metrics measure stability and throughput. That is the quality of the software that we produce and the efficiency with which we can create software of that quality. If you score poorly on both of these things, then you're delivering low quality software slowly, by definition. This is pretty much a guaranteed route towards failure. The red flag is deployment frequency being low, lead times are long, change failure rates are high, and the mean time to recovery is slow. The fix is to start implementing techniques like continuous integration, automated testing, frequent releases, and quick rollbacks or fixes to improve the speed and quality of feedback loops to catch issues sooner. Warning sign number 8, making progress in big steps. Big multi-month plans reduce your opportunities to learn and adapt. The better alternative is to treat development as a constant cycle of experimentation and discovery, rather than trying to find and then fix in some plan what you think are the best ideas before you begin. It's much more effective to assume that your ideas at any point, but certainly at the beginning of a project, are all wrong. So think about how your ideas might fail. And also design your systems to be easy to change so that you can correct the mistakes when you do find them. The red flag here is usually visible through features planned far into the future and not released or tested for months or years. The fix is to work in smaller steps. Release more frequently and get fast feedback where you can from real users, whatever that takes. If you find your team working on detailed plans for work that is going to be carried out months ahead and working on features that won't be released for weeks or months or even years ahead, this is a big warning sign. Instead, find out how to optimize your development process so that you could release at any time. This relies on fast feedback and the other techniques of continuous delivery. Organising our work like this allows us to work more incrementally, growing our software small step by small step. And that allows us more opportunities to learn and correct our course when we detect a mistake. Ninth in my list is poor or no feedback loops. We've already talked about feedback, but good short feedback loops allow us to steer our projects towards success. If we don't know whether our new features work for users, or even if our code is releasable or not, then we're driving blind. The red flag is rare or non-existent feedback from users, no automated checks, and the fix is to shorten the feedback cycles at every level. Always optimize for shorter, higher quality feedback everywhere that you can. User feedback, automated builds, continuous integration, and frequent production releases are all tools that help us to achieve this. And now for our bonus warning, number 10. Building the wrong thing. Perhaps the most obvious and most critical form of software project failure is building something that no one wants or cares about. This may seem like an obvious mistake that no one would ever make, surely. But in reality, it's extremely common. Microsoft did some research and found that 2/3 of their ideas produced 0 or negative value on the scale of measure for the idea that it was meant to improve. Estimates of how often features that we produce as an industry are never used at all range from between 40 and 90%. So building the wrong things is at least common, and is probably more common than building things that people do want. The red flag to look out for is that we don't have any users. There's no feedback, no bug reports, even though we know that our software is out there and buggy. The fix is to involve real users in the development process. Either recruit tame users who can give you suggestions and feedback as you build the software, or release your software more frequently into production and observe it to determine how it's used and which parts are ignored. That's the end of my list. Thank you very much for watching. I hope these warning signs help you to keep your projects on the path towards success. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. And if you really enjoy it, consider joining our Patreon community to support our work here on the Continuous Delivery channel. Your support helps us to continue sharing best practices for continuous delivery and software engineering. See you next time.